Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about doing some seals and gasketing today. Essentially what we have is we have this little trainer set up here at Seal Hardware. And so let's go ahead and get started and see what it's asking us to do. Now, the first thing is we're going to talk a little bit about actually making gaskets. That's very, very common. Let's say that we need to put two things together and there needs to be some kind of a seal between it. What we can do is actually make one of these gaskets. All right, so let's see what that looks like. First thing we need is actually gasket material. In this case, we're going to use cork because that's what's available, and that's kind of what's a part of this little exercise. And what that would all look like is as simple as lining these things up with the edge. Now, why do I line it up with the edge? Well, first of all, that's less I have to cut, so that's less I actually have to do. But even more so than that, that's less material that I'm using. So if I just put it right smack in the middle, I'm actually like kind of really using a lot more material than is necessary for getting my gasket done. And then if I need gasket material in the future, I'm not necessarily going to have as much. So I'm going to very simply, as you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a pencil. It could be a pen. It could be anything that's going to mark it. And I'm going to make some marks on here so I can see where all the stuff is. Then after I get done doing this, it's literally as simple as arts and crafts time. I'm going to go and snip this stuff right out. And you can feel free to kind of turn this any way you need to in order to be able to achieve what you're after. And that ultimately is just cutting this shape out. Again, you guys have probably done something like this at elementary school. So this should be very, very easy. All right, so now that I actually have my piece, I'm going to set this off to the side over here. And now what I need to do is take in consideration for the holes. All right, so how do I get the holes in here? This right here is the most common way of putting holes in. There are actually punches, and with this particular lab in this kit, there's a punch already the size of what you need for the holes. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that this is lined up right around that mark that I made, and I'm going to give a nice swift hit with the hammer, and it's going to pop that hole right in there just nice and perfect. So then I'm going to repeat that process with all of the others. All right, making sure that I go all the way through. Again, just be very concerned about being accurate. That way you don't have any additional stress that is unnecessary for this. Okay, and now I have those holes in place. And if I want, I can just lay this over and yeah, it looks like everything's lining up really well. Okay, so that's good. Now this center hole here, if it's big enough, you can probably get in and start cutting with a pair of scissors, but sometimes it's just really difficult. And if you have the resources, it's good to see if you can find a hollow punch set. And this one right here goes all the way from 1/8 inch up to 3/4. And so you can find one that's very close to what you want to use. And I think this is going to be about 5/8 in this case. And you can even check it with that. Yeah, that looks about close. I want to get this right smack in the center here. And nice little whack. I'm going to do it twice for good measure. I want to make sure that cuts because I don't want to have to tear it. And then what we have here is we can line this up, and it looks like all of my holes actually line up nice and perfect. Okay, and so to test this out, what we're going to do is get, I believe, 1 1/8 bolts, and we're going to run them through the clearance side into the threaded side and bolt this thing together. Now, when you bolt these things together, you want to make sure that you're not making this really, really tight over here and then tightening up the other ones. Rather, what you want to do is bring them all down to where they're touching, put a little bit of torque here, a little bit here, here, and here. So you're going to keep doing that cross pattern in order to bring it down to torque, because tightening too much on one side will actually cause damage to the gasket. And then when this is brought back over, you're not going to get the appropriate sealing on this particular unit. But again, you're going to put all the bolts, run them in up to, and then you're going to do a cross pattern. So a little bit of torque here, 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 and here, all the way around until you get this system into torque. Now, once you've completed that, that right there is literally how you make a gasket.